Welcome to Assignment 3 by Jennifer Montoya. Glows, areas in which the coach excelled. One of the first areas that the coach excelled in the coaching session with the teacher was that she offered a focused, bite-sized action step for the teacher. It was focused on a specific action around monitoring student discussion and learning while students were doing a collaborative pair and share talk. This was concrete in nature and not vague. That's really important for the teacher because if an action step was vague or too broad, the teacher would have a hard time grasping it or really understanding what was being asked. When we think about scaffolding and helping learners, whether they're adult learners or children learners, we know that chunking content or learning sessions into smaller, manageable chunks is really helpful. And the coach was able to do that with that specific immediate action step that the teacher could then immediately implement into their classroom session. The second area that the coach excelled in was integrating kinesthetic movement, which is another learning style, into her coaching session. She had the teacher get up and role play by walking around the classroom, listening to students as they discuss. This is really important and helpful because this allows the teacher to create muscle memory for when he's actually going to do this in the classroom. And it aids in his learning and transferring that to long-term memory so that in new situations, he's able to apply the same skill when he's working with his children. Let's see this in action.
Okay, 2 minutes, turn and talk. What impact did the Pope visit have on New York City?
Well, I noticed that when the Pope was here, they were talking about social justice and climate change. I noticed in the article that
the third area that the coach excelled in was utilizing constructive feedback with the teacher while also focusing on transfer and constructivism. Within her session with the teacher, as he moved around the room, she would pause him and ask him questions about his physical being in the classroom to determine if his body was going to be looking away from the students and what that would cause. She also made sure that when she was asking him questions, she wasn't just telling him the answer. She was being specific and factual in questions, but she asked him what he thought. So he was able to reflect in his own time to determine, well, what would that be? What impact would that be on the students? This is really helpful because the dialogue, as she gave that corrective feedback to him, was not something that was trying to get him or prove that he had done something wrong, but more getting him to see and recognize his own behaviors and how that would impact the students in the classroom. Let's see this in action.
Now you put 2 students at one time. Pause. When you stay right there, right where exactly where you were. What is a drawback of that particular body position at this moment?
I could be like, can't see the rest of the
So
students.
how do you use that as a hotspot but still be able to monitor the rest of the room?
Like move it, like position myself here.
Perfect.
So
go back to there, because from back there you can see the whole class, and for this hotspot, be on the outside so you're still facing the rest of the class.
Okay.
Awesome. Let's move back to our binder.
Yeah, that felt better.
Perfect. Tell me why.
It felt better because it's like it seems more fluid. It's a lot more fluid. And it helps me, like, as you're circulating and like you're not spending too much time, but just like I said before, just able to understand what the students are saying and what their thought process is.
Grows, opportunities for growth. One area of growth that the coach has is that when the video session started, it seemed to start midway into the session. And they jumped right into talking about the action step. And she told him that he was just going to quickly look over his script and then role play. It would be important for the coach to first start the meeting with a reflection on why this was a focus in the first place. Was this something that the teacher noted, or is this something that the coach noted in her observation? That would help that then lead to deciding that this was the appropriate action step and setting the purpose for the meeting, because it would be really important that the teacher feels that what they're about to do with the coach is something that is going to impact them immediately. And without setting that context, sometimes there might be confusion as to why they are even doing that session in the first place. Let's see this in action.
Take 30 seconds to review over your script, because in 30 seconds, we're going to go ahead and we are going to role play just this part right here, all the way up through the cold call.
Another area for the coach would be around her listening skills as the teacher was trying to articulate his thoughts. We see this when she's probing him and asks him to pause as he moves around the room, and she asks him a series of questions. And within each question, he's answering, but then she cuts him off before he can finish and then asks him either another question or tells him to move and to move to a different action. And sometimes when you do that, that sets up a negative tone when we don't allow people to speak and we're not active listeners. A coach must be an active listener and cannot interrupt, because they're interrupting the flow of thoughts. And that is going to set that relationship off kilter between the coach and also the teacher. So it is really important that even though the coach had something accurate to say and the direction she was giving him was the right direction, she needed to allow him to finish his thought, because then she might have even seen that he knew it before she even asked it. So again, it's very important that she allows him to finish. Questions. What is left unsaid and unasked? Within the coaching session, the coach asked many impactful questions that produced dialogue between the coach and the teacher. However, there were some opportunities that the coach had to add in more questions that would have impacted the outcomes for the teacher. One of those was at the beginning of the session. The coaching video starts right into them talking about the role play. But what the coach should have started the session with is asking the teacher to reflect on the lesson that she had observed. By doing that reflection, then that would have allowed the teacher possibly to be able to talk about what he thought the lesson went, specifically around monitoring learning while students are interacting in a collaborative structure. And so without doing that, she jumps right in and doesn't set that stage. So asking the question, what do you, or how do you think that this session went? What areas of growth do you think that you have? And what's an action step that you think would be helpful might have been impactful for the teacher to, again, set that why of their session altogether. Another question that the teacher or that the coach forgot to ask about was around the next steps. The session just ends with the teacher reflecting on the impact of the coaching session, which was really helpful. However, the session ended without action steps. So the coach should have asked the teacher about what he thought that their next action steps were, or articulate what she thought her next action steps were, so that it could have a clear takeaway in regards to what the teacher was going to do next and what the coach was going to do next. By asking those questions about the next steps, that would have been solidified so that there would have been no room for error when it comes to the next coaching session or the next classroom observation. Future actions. What are the coach's next steps? There are a few future action steps that the coach can do in regards to the coaching session. The first action step would be to bring the teacher back to do some further role playing to delve into how to handle disruptions. In the first role play, there were no student disruptions. And so the teacher was able to successfully go through the role play and be able to listen to students, get feedback from the coach to determine body position in the classroom. However, we know that in a regular setting, there may be kids that are off task or there may be kids that are disrupting the learning for others. And so it would be important for the coach to integrate that into the role play so that the teacher would not be surprised or taken off task when they were trying to implement the action step. Another future action that would be important for the coach to do is to plan a time to come back and observe the implementation and then set up a follow-up meeting. The purpose of this future observation and follow-up meeting is to determine, is the teacher needing to continue to work through the action step, or are they ready to move on to another action step? Now, this could not be completed if the coach just came and observed and didn't provide feedback, or if the teacher wasn't given time to reflect on their own learning after implementing the action step after the coaching session. It's always important to make sure that you have stamped the learning, whether it's an adult learner or a child learner, to make sure that that action step can be successfully implemented as they move in their teaching progression. St. Leo core value, community. In reflecting on the St. Leo core value of community, we see that that core value fosters a spirit of belonging, unity, and interdependence, and that it challenges those that are involved to be active listeners, to learn, to change, and to serve. In this coaching session, we see that in action. The coach and the teacher are working together and building a community of trust. They're both working together to listen to one another, even though that is some areas of growth that the coach has. They're also working together to change because they want to make sure that both of their practices increases, that the teacher becomes a better teacher and the coach is reflective to become a better coach. Also, part of the community is to serve, and the coach's role is not to evaluate, but to serve the teacher. To serve the teacher in becoming better, to serve the teacher in feeling connected, to serve the teacher in feeling valued, and to serve the teacher so that the teacher feels successful. Together, they form a community. Thank you for watching.